So this is my very first router. This is a Triton smaller one, begins with an M. And I bought this because I'm new to woodworking and someday I will have a router table, but at the moment I don't, so I wanted this one because I could use it as both a handheld and later mount it under a table. But there's a couple things about it I really don't like when I use it as a handheld router. So one thing that kind of annoys me is this edge gauge. There's nothing that keeps it square, edge guide rather. So you tighten it down by these two knobs and they're independent of each other, right? So if you're setting the depth, you don't have to move each side an equal amount. You're just doing it by hand, and I thought when you tighten it, it would square up just because of the mechanics if you didn't happen to get it exactly right, but it doesn't. I don't know if you could tell this on the video, but I'll show you on a piece of wood. This is not square. Okay, switching to my cell phone camera because it's easier to see. So this piece of wood is totally square, and try to do this one-handed. If I have it along the edge guide, right, you can see, you see what a big difference that is? So this piece of metal is not square, you know, and maybe it doesn't matter because as you're running it along, it's always going to be the same distance from the edge, even if this guide isn't 100% perpendicular. But I don't know, I mean, you're paying for this router. This should be square when you set it. There should be something that squares that up when you tighten those knobs. Another thing I don't like about it, there's no way to turn this on with just one hand. I guess you could do that, but you have to slide this back and push the button. So it's really hard to do with just one hand, which means, you know, if you take both hands off the handles to turn it on, that's not very safe. So, I mean, I guess you could do it, but nope, because this has to be all the way open, and it's really hard to hold this open and push that at the same time. So, another thing I'm not crazy about is, in order to set it into manual plunge mode, you have to push this little button all the way until it locks, and it's really, 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 really hard to do. I mean, you practically have to break your thumb to do it, and I've had this router for, I don't know, a few months now, and it has not gotten any easier, so I find myself taking my hands off the handles and using two hands to push this in, which is not all that safe. The other thing I've noticed is, another way to set the depth is you pull in this ring, and then you can turn the knob to set it, but it doesn't stay where you put it. It backs off by a tiny bit. It must have some positive stops in there that it goes to. I don't know. But so, for instance, let me see if I can capture this. Let's say I plunge to here and then let go. Let's see. There. Did you see that? If I plunge to there and then let go, it backs up a little bit. Down. There. So it's not going to be 100% where you set it. The only thing I've noticed really is an accurate depth adjustment is this micro adjustment. So I find myself using this 99% of the time. But I just wish this were a little easier to plunge with while you have both hands on the handles, and it's really not. One last thing is there's a whole lot of plastic on here, and I guess if you use it with dust collection, it's one thing. I do not have that set up yet, so I'm using without, but it is really hard to see what you're doing through all this plastic when it's running, with all the wood dust flying around and stuff. Really hard to see. There's just, I mean, I know it's for safety, but there's just a lot of plastic you have to look through.